Hello, I'm Waffles Are Better. Although it may look like I'm in the overworld right now, I'm actually, as you can see on my debug screen, in another dimension. In this video, I'll be showing you how to actually create your own dimension using a data pack in Minecraft. This is the first video in an in-depth series that I'm planning to make on how to create your own dimension. In this video, all you'll be learning is how to create a dimension that looks just like the overworld, and how to customize a few settings, but it'll still be its own dimension. Don't worry, there will be much cooler things in the future. These are just the basics. Something I should probably say before I start is that in the first few videos I made like this, I was using Notepad++, but now I'm using Visual Studio Code because I think that's easier to follow along with. And I have the Datapack Helper Plus extension installed, and I will have links to both this extension and the Visual Studio Code in the description. So instead of just making a general tutorial, what I think would be more helpful is making a tutorial series that follows along with a project that I'm actually working on, because that way the tutorials seem more relevant and you can kind of see what I'm actually going to use them for. So the pack I'm going to be working on for this tutorial series is called the Frost, and basically what it does is it adds a dimension that's supposed to be like the opposite of the Nether. Instead of like a fiery lava dimension, it's a frozen ice dimension. So since it's a data pack, the first thing I'm going to do is create a new file called pack.mcmeta, and then type the stuff you need for pack.mcmeta in here, and you should probably know what goes in here by now. Oops. And if you don't, then you should watch the data pack tutorial I've already made that I'm going to link in the description. But pack, oops, format, and then this needs to be 6 because of the version that the data pack will be compatible with, which will be the 1.16 versions. And then for my description, I'm just going to type the opposite of the Nether. Capitalize that. Then I have to make the correct folder directory, and for this I'm just going to create a new folder called data, and in there a new folder called Frost, and this needs to be whatever your namespace is going to be. Like how the Minecraft namespace is just Minecraft. For this, your namespace, if you type in Frost, it'll be Frost at the beginning right here. And if you type in anything else, like if you typed in Waffles, then the namespace will be Waffles. And this should just be like something that relates to the name of your pack, or something similar to that. Then you want to create 2 more folders in your namespace folder, and you want one of them to be called Dimension, and then the other one to be called Dimension_type. If you're following along with File Explorer, it should look like this: data, and then your namespace folder, and then dimension and dimension type. So then the next thing you want to do is to go into your dimension type folder, and then just create a new file, and you want to name this whatever you want your dimension name to be .json. So I want my dimension to be named the_frost, so I'm going to name it thefrost.json, and then in here you just want to paste all of this. And all of this will be in the example data pack that I'll have a download for linked in the description. But what I suggest is to go to the link I'll also have in the description. That's the download for slicedlime's vanilla worldgen defaults. And this just has all the different files and different locations and stuff you need to be able to create your own biomes and dimension and stuff. But they can be confusing if you don't know what all the things mean. So like opening this file, there's just a bunch of stuff in here, and if you don't understand what any of this means, it's not that helpful for you. So that's why I'm making a tutorial series on it, so you can begin to understand how to actually do all of this stuff. You can find what all this stuff means on the Minecraft Wiki's custom page, which I'll link in the description, but the way they have it there isn't that easy to understand. So if you want to try to read it out there, you can, but the point of this tutorial is to make it easier to follow. So logical height, which I have here, is 256, which is the overworld default. In the Nether, I believe it's 128, is how high a Nether portal or chorus root can take a player. And in the Nether, it's 128 because that's the Nether roof. That's as high as you can go. But if you build another portal above that height, it will link to one in the overworld. It's just that new portals won't generate there. And Infiniburn, right here, just specifies a tag for all the blocks that will burn infinitely in that dimension. So you can find all the tags in Minecraft by typing %appdata% into your search bar, and then going to .minecraft, then versions, and then just choose the version you want, find the .jar file in there, and then you need to extract this. I use WinRAR to extract, and just extract it to the folder that it defaults as. Then once that's done, I just like to drag this to my desktop so I can easily reach it. And in here is all of the Minecraft files, including all the textures and recipes and things. And then you can just delete all of these class files because you don't need them for the file directory and stuff. Then you also aren't going to need the meta.inf, net, or com files, so you can delete those too. And now you're left with assets and data. So assets contains like all the textures and things. So if I go in here, assets Minecraft, and then all of these things, including text, textures, block states, and other stuff. So that's useful for resource packs, but data is what we want for data packs. So to find the tags, you just go to data Minecraft tags, and then the InfiniBurn tag is in blocks. So you can make your own tag for this, but I think it's fine just to use the overworld tag because I'm not really sure what else you'd want to add to this. This basically just says that netherrack and magma blocks will always burn in the overworld and never stop. In the nether, it's just the same as the overworld, and in the end, it's the same as the overworld, but also bedrock. So just to show how you make your own tag for that, I'm going to go to Frost and then add a new folder called tags, and then in there, blocks, just like as you can see, the Minecraft namespace and then tags and blocks. And then in the blocks folder, I'm going to make a new file called infiniburn _frost.json, and then just go back to this, copy everything in here, and paste it here, and then I don't want anything to constantly burn, so instead of adding a new block, like you could just add any block you wanted. So if you wanted a diamond block to burn infinitely in this dimension, you would do this, but I just want to leave this empty so that nothing burns forever in here. So that means that not even netherrack will burn forever like it usually does in the other dimensions. So I'm just going to save all and then go back here. And the next thing here is effects. And basically what this does is it determines the sky effect of the dimension. So the overworld has stars and clouds and the moon and the sun and things, and the nether has a fog that covers the entire sky, and the end has the staticky sky that you see in the end dimension. Oops, I just realized I forgot to change this to Frost InfiniBurn Frost, which is my namespace, this folder right here, and the name of the file, which I made here, because I don't want it to stay as the InfiniBurn overworld. Then the next thing is ambient light, and this basically just says how much light you want there to be normally in the dimension, like skylight. So in the overworld, this is 0.0. In the end, it's also 0.0. But in the nether, it's 0.1, because in the nether, it's kind of lit up all the time, even though there's no sky access. Then respawn anchor works. This basically means whether the respawn anchor will explode when you try to use it or not, like it does in the end and the overworld. So I'm going to set this to true because I don't want the respawn anchor to explode when I use it. And then has raids means basically exactly what you'd think it mean, is that if a player has the bad omen effect and they go into a village, if a pillager raid will start. And I want to keep this as true. And then the next is minimum Y and height, and these will only work in the upcoming 1.17 versions, but you can still keep them in here. It won't make your dimension not work if you use them pre 1.17. It just won't do anything. Then minimum Y is the lowest blocks can exist in the world, and this needs to be a multiple of 16, and this needs to be between negative 2032 and positive 2032. So basically, if you set this to like negative 16 in the 1.17 versions, that would mean that the bedrock level in your dimension is negative 16, Then the height value is the total number of blocks in the dimension. So currently, the default is 256 because the Y levels you can build at are 0 to 256. But if I set this to -16, then this would have to be 272. And if I set this to +16, then this would have to be 240. Then next is natural, and if this value is true, that means it's like the overworld and nether portals can spawn zombified piglins. And if this value is false, that means compasses do not work, and nether portals cannot spawn zombified piglins. So I'm going to set this to false, because I do not want compasses to work in my dimension. And then next is coordinate scale, and this just means like how much the coordinates are multiplied by. So as you probably know, each block in the nether is 8 blocks in the overworld. So for the nether, this value is 8, but for all the other dimensions, the value is just 1. Then piglin safe determines whether in this dimension the piglins will turn into zombified piglins, like in the end and the overworld, or if they'll just stay as regular piglins like in the nether. Bed works is the same as respawn anchor works, except for beds. Has skylight determines if there is light from the sky, like how in the overworld in the daytime there's daylight. If you set this as false, it'll be like you're in a cave all the time. Has ceiling just determines whether the dimension has a ceiling, like the nether does. And then ultra warm determines whether the dimension works like the nether or not, where lava runs faster and sponges dry and you can't place water. Then there's one other optional option, which is, if I just go down here, fixed time, which means that the dimension will always be at a certain time. Like you could set it to always be midnight or always be noon or something. And if you want your dimension to have a normal day-night cycle like the overworld, you want to just not even include this option at all, just delete it. And then after this, if you do want a fixed time, just put the Minecraft time that you want the time to be. So, for example, in the nether, it's 18,000, which is midnight, which is what I want it to be for my dimension. And in the end, it is 6,000. So that's all you have to do for dimension type. You want to make sure that you save all of your files. And now it's time to actually create the dimension itself. To do that, you just want to go to the dimension folder, create a new file, and then name it whatever you want your dimension to be called. I'm going to name it the_frost, just like I did this one. So the_frost.json, and then you want to paste all of this in. And again, this is also in the tutorial file that I have in the description, but it's probably better to check out slicedlime's vanilla defaults, because that includes the overworld and the nether and the end files. So the first thing you want to do is to change this to your namespace and your dimension type file name. So mine was the_frost. Then this here is the biome generator, and there's several different biome types you can have. For example, vanilla layered is just the default overworld generation type. Then there's Minecraft the_end, which is just the end generation. Then there's fixed, which is just a single biome. Multi_noise, which is the kind of generation that the nether uses, and also what you want to use if you're using like several different biomes, or you just want to customize which biomes are in your dimension. And then you can also have checkerboard, which means that a series of square biomes will repeat in a checkerboard pattern. But I'm just going to choose vanilla layered, and I'll go into the other types in a later video because they're probably what you want to actually use for your dimension. But for now, I'm just going to use vanilla layered. Similar to that, I'll also go into different dimension types in another video, such as a flat dimension or a debug dimension. And then these seeds here, this one's for the biome seed and this one's for the dimension seed. So like this one will determine where each biome is and this one will determine what the land looks like. And these would usually be the same, so I'm just going to leave mine as 0. And then next is the noise setting that you want your dimension to follow. And this is kind of complicated because it's a pretty long file and determines like how each structure will generate and a bunch of other factors that determine how the land itself will generate, and also you can change what the base block of your dimension is. So like, for example, in the nether it's netherrack, and in the overworld it's stone. And you can change a bunch of other stuff like that. But this video is just supposed to teach you how to actually create a dimension in the first place. So I will go into the noise settings in another video. So then if you make sure to save all of the files, this should be done. So I'll just put this data pack in a world to test it out. And I spawned in a Badlands, which is pretty cool. You don't see those very often. So then if I just do /execute in, you can see that Frost, which is my namespace, that I named the file, and then the Frost, which is the name of the dimension I made, shows up. And then I can just run TP waffles are better, and then just the coordinates I am here, and it should teleport me just into the Frost. And as you can see, it's nighttime because I made it so my dimension is always in midnight. But otherwise, it's just the same as the regular overworld. However, if I go into my inventory and get a compass, as you can see, it doesn't work. It just spins around randomly. It doesn't point in any helpful direction. And if I just get myself some netherrack and flint and steel, this should eventually go out, even though in the overworld the netherrack would just keep burning forever. But I'm just gonna stay here for a minute and wait for it to go out. And there it goes. The fire is out. Netherrack does not burn forever in this dimension, and that's because I told it not to in the Infiniburn Frost file that I made. That's it for this video. If you want to learn about how to customize your dimension and make it look nothing like the overworld, unlike mine looks now, be sure to subscribe so you'll see the rest of the tutorials in this series when they come out. You'll be able to make whatever kind of dimension that you want following these tutorials. If you have any questions about anything I've covered in this video, feel free to ask me those in the comments. And if you have any suggestions for future videos or anything else that you want me to cover on this topic or any other topic, feel free to tell me that in the comments as well. Thanks for watching.